All right, we're on lesson 22 now, and we're on the second aorist tense, continuation of lesson 21. And what we have here in this is we have some special forms, because basically we have the me verbs, and they are a little bit different. These are called the liquid aorist, and egno, kurios, tus, ontos, atu. The Lord knows the ones who are his. The ones, and this is a participle here, the ones being of him, actually is what that is. All right. So we're looking at, besides the two main aorist formations we've already learned, there are other variations. And these would be the liquid aorist, the me aorist, and the kappa aorist, and those are the three. These are not, they're not as frequent, but they are present. The liquid aorist, lambdas, letters lambda, mu, nu, and rho are called liquids. And they form their aorist like the first aorist, except the sigma is expelled, and after the liquid, and the short vowel in the stem is lengthened. So we don't have a sigma on them. They will have an augment by the standard augment rules. They just won't have a sigma. And the short vowel in the stem is then lengthened. So an alpha becomes an eta. Eta is a long A, except before a rho. So it won't do that before a rho. Epsilon becomes a diphthong A, epsilon iota. And an iota changes its accent mark here. And basically it becomes a what over here, in this case right here, it gets the accent changes. That's what they're trying to tell you here with this. So notice here, crino, and crino, crino, and crino. That's the difference between the two words for I judge in the present and the future. And then akrina, and that would be in the aorist. That's a liquid, right? The epsilon changes, and we can see it here. The epsilon loses its accent mark. It's not the accented syllable, and the omega becomes the syllable. Its accent is still spelled the same way in the future. So you got to be real careful when you're looking at the present and the future. For some of these words, they're the same form, just the accent mark changes, right? And I had an illustration of that. I guess I probably need to just send it to you fellows. I had it on Facebook 2 or 3 weeks ago. Put it on some English words that you can change, just change the accent, where the accent goes, what syllable the accent's on, and it's spelled the same way, but it's a different word. And that's kind of interesting, but that's what we have here. We have that in the Greek as well, right here. Of course, there's your aorist, and this would probably be your stem, and there's that stem again. And there's your stem again. So it becomes there's your augment, and there is the ending, and so it is lengthened. All right. Would become an eta, it's an alpha right here. Okay. All right. So after the lengthening, the conjugation is the same as the first aorist minus the sigma. So we lengthen it. This is showing the lengthening of it. And so estela, ascend. This is from stello. And here, let me see, do we have stello? Yeah, there's stello. Right here, stello, ascend. And apostello is ascend, and that's a verb form of the word for apostle. It's usually standing with some kind of a duty, given the authority to do the job or the tools or the ability to do it. And so this is I sent, and this is you sent, estelas, estela, and you have your endings like you do on your aorist. And you have the alpha, there's your ending, no sigma, of course, and then os, and then the a, that's your three endings, and then may have a movable nil on it, and then amen, or actually it's just men, and then ate, and on. Those are the endings for your aorist. If you have your table with you, you can see what I'm talking about. Any question there?
Yeah, the up above, it has stello with I stand. Should it be I send?
Yeah, it should be I send. That is correct. I will correct that. Histamine would be I stand. It's one of the words that they have here as well. All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right. Everyone okay with that? Well, I'll save it. All right. That's fixed. But that is sin. I looked straight at it and didn't even notice it. All right. So it has the same endings that you have in your aorist, but without the sigma. We would have sigma here, seeing that would be sa, say, saman, sate, san. And then we just drop the sigmas off and we have it. Okay. Now, how can you tell that that's not a future? Well, the future would have had a sigma, but it wouldn't have the augment. See, the augment will tell you it's aorist or it's past tense. The augment could go with the imperfect or the aorist, one of the two. So this augment here tells us it's either aorist or it's imperfect. And the endings won't fit the imperfect. Okay? That makes sense? Everyone okay? All right. Hopefully you are. We have me verbs, and here's one of them, histamine. That's I stand. That's one of our words. And it's a me verb ending in me. And we have some more me verbs down here. And this is stand. Right? So right here, a me aorist, a variation of the second aorist. In some verbs, the second aorist endings are added directly to the aorist stem without a connecting vowel. That's what happens in the me verbs. Since the absence of the connecting vowel is a sign of the me verbs, the aorist is at times called the me aorist. So it functions like the me. Not necessarily is. The main verb wasn't a present tense wasn't me necessarily, but it's going to function like it. Okay. Gnosko, and originally it was gnosko. That was the original form of the word. And I want you to notice the gay, and that might even fit in with the idea of remembering something or knowing something. And so it comes back to your memory because you know it. That's the way I interpret that. And of course, they dropped the first gamma and the iota, dropped them off, and then left it. They dropped those two off right there and left it with this, like we have it over here. That's from all appearances, that's what happened. And your stem is no. gamma, nu, omega. And there's your stem right there. And so if you have it, you have an augment, take your stem, and you add a nu to it, and you add a sigma and nothing. Nu, sigma, nothing. Now that would get into your me verbs. All right. I don't know if you have a copy of your me verbs, but they're in the book somewhere. I can't remember what page they were in. We've had them already. Okay. All right. So nu, sigma, nothing. Min, te, san. That's the ending of the me verbs. And they don't have a connecting vowel, and so they lose that connecting vowel. But they function. O, nu, sigma, nothing. Min, te, san. And then psi. That's your infinitive form. And so egnon, egnos, egno, egnomen, egnote, egnoson, noson, nosi, nosi. And of course, in an infinitive, it would go with it's not time related. So it's not limited to a particular time. It's infinite. It's infinite. It can fit any time frame. So it won't have an augment. That's why it doesn't have an augment, of course. Any questions? Other verbs like egnon, and that's our form of gnosko, or bino, and it becomes basomai and ebane. That would be your aorist form. So what we have here is this becomes its basic stem and bane. Then we have, and this would, notice this right here, you can have a bunch of different prepositions, that would go with this, and like upo, bino. And so you may see that form, that's a word, and that's to go from. And then you'd have ekbino, go out, katabino, go down. And so there's several forms of the word with bino, right? That's why they left it off over at the hyphen. It's usually in one of those forms rather than just bino by itself. And I don't have an accent mark on because they usually go with the preposition over here, okay? Now your augment would go after the preposition if I have upo. The augment would go where the cursor is right here. Okay, that's where your augment would go. You remember that, of course, I'm sure. All right, questions?
Yeah. Do you know what the difference is between bino and erkomai?
Well, we could go over and look at it I think you'll find it in Trench's synonyms of the New Testament, probably. And I probably have it in my file on the, if you look those words up, I probably have it in my file that I sent you, that big file with lexicon and grammar notes.
Okay.
We'll take a look at it as soon as we finish this and go over into that, if that's all right, if you'll kind of help me remember.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. So let's, histome is to stand, right? And you could stand up, you could stand out. And so again, they may compound it with other words. And I think the stem on it is sta. That's the stem right there. If my memory's right, that's your stem for it. Okay. right here, that becomes your stem, and the star lengthens the alpha lengthens into an eta, and then we get the nu. Does that make sense? All right, so that's what happens there. And the star lengthens to an eta right here in the future even. Okay. And here it lengthens to an eta over there as well. So I think that's your stem for it. And so right out the full aorist of bino, and we'll take a stab at that a little bit later, okay? I want to look at your copper aorist. I don't know, we probably won't get all of this done. Let's look at our copper aorist right now. 3 verbs in the Greek have aorist forms by the sign kappa instead of a sigma alpha. And so they have a kappa form. And that would be didomi, tithomi, and aemi. But it's compounded and found quite a few times. It's descend, and that's descend in classical Greek. I don't know if you find it in the New Testament by itself. It's compound form, aphiemi. And if you break this right here would be from apo and emi. And that, of course, is a rough reading. But that would be aphiemi, that would be to send from or to forgive. You're going to send your sins away. And so we're going to send them away. And so to send, and that's one word that's fairly important, forgive. Didomi and tithomi are found quite a few number of times in the New Testament. As I give, and tithomi is I place, or S-E-T, I set, And whenever I grew up on a farm out in the western part of Oklahoma, and hens sat and hens lay and people lie. Okay, that's what we were told. Okay, hens are sat, a hen would sit on the eggs, and you sit down. So that's the difference. To place it into a position or set it in place. All right. Elders were set in the church or placed in the church. All right. So tithomi and didomi, and then didomi will be compounded. Apodidomi, I give from. See? And it'll be compounded with several different prepositions. Some of these words will. So they might not be found just in those forms, but they'll be found in many other forms with them. Hiami is compounded. It's aphiemi is pretty common. I think another word is compounded with it, but it's not found by itself in the New Testament. It's only in compound form. But it is a word in the classical Greek, though. So it's in classical Greek. But it just kind of lost its way and stayed with the words like forgive, aphiemi. Okay. Questions? All right, let's do this. We started a little bit late, so I want to do the aorist of ago. As frequently, it's ago. There's a word I lead. It's a reduplicated form. And so you have your og. That's probably your stem right there. And so they reduplicate it. And we're going to learn later that's the mark of the perfect tense normally. But it's a frequently occurring verb, ago is. That means it's a lot of times in the New Testament. It's a reduplicated form from current in the Attic Greek. Attic is the Greek of Athens, which was the cat's meow. That's the Greek you want to speak if you were a Greek speaker. My grandfather great grandfather came from Germany. One of my great grandfathers did when he was 4. And my grandfather spoke Greek, or Greek. He spoke German and English both, but he said to me, he said, I speak Low Dutch, and that's not the language you want to speak in Germany. So I guess it's like Southern English is not the preferred English of the United States. Does that make sense? Oh, and he told me that. Okay. All right. So this is Attic, but Attic would be the preferred dialect to speak because it was they were the educated people. Okay. I'm going to get out of this just a minute. We're going to go into it and see what we can find here. It was, what word was it? Which word were you asking about there, Benjamin?
Just on Bino versus Ercomine.
Okay. Bino versus Echelman. Well, I'm going to get out of it. And we will stop sharing. We'll go back in. We'll start sharing. And Mexican and grammar. Can you see I'm sorry, I got into the wrong one.
Right now it's just gray screen.
Yeah. All right, can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Go to beta. Bino. It is. Where the word bino is not in the New Testament, but in a compound form it is. The root is beta alpha. And so we'd have to look at kata bino. Let's go to kata. So we don't have bino by itself, okay? Kata bino. Okay, kata bino is to go down, to descend. Bino is not in the form, and erkomai is to go or come. But kata bino is to go down. Apo bino, let's go back up and find it. To come down from, turn out, or in what issue or turn out. That's apo bino, come out, come down from, or literally it's to come from, but to come out, to come down from. Ek bino, I don't, we'll have to go to erkomai. Let's go to epsilon. Since we really don't have bino in there, it's not going to be a distinction, okay, for us to worry about. Because that bino is not there, it's just in compound forms. I also got a Hebrew word in here because the reeds or rushes, the Red Sea. Echo mine's just to denote motion or progress generally of any sort, hence to come. It's not in as a synonym, I'm sorry, because Bino is not in the New Testament. Okay. Sorry. I don't have you an answer. All right. Here's one of the words for love, but it's not in the New Testament. I'll put it in the lexicon for you. Our word erotic comes from this, okay? All right. All right. So any questions? Any more questions I can't answer?
Yeah, sorry for the tangent.
I want to show you one thing that we have in here in this. Epithumeo is to lust or to have a strong desire for something. Could be, it's used in both a good and a bad sense. But the root words, if you notice here, we'll take those first letters and you'll find them here. And epithumeo. And these are related words that go with it. And what I've done is research these. I've got some other lexicons that put them in that form. So I went through the lexicons, and so you have the related words that go with it. Right here, this has one related word. Sometimes I will put related words that aren't even in the New Testament there, because they may be in the Greek translation of the Old Testament, or maybe of some use somewhere. This is the long for desire, and here's some words that go with it. We have a verb, we give the verb, and we have a noun, an adjective, and another verb, probably another noun. Or a beta. I want to show you. Get away here too far. We started a little bit late. That's my fault. I don't know what happened. Bob told to dip, to dye a color. If you're going to dye something, you got to immerse it, don't you? Bob to dip, baptizo verb. And so you have baptistasis is the one who baptizes. And these two words are very interesting. I want to go, if I might, and let me just take this word. Well, all right here. I want you to see these. This makes an interesting study. Okay. Baptisma, baptismos. They're both nouns. Very interesting. It's immersion, and this is washing or immersion. But right here, the action is indicated by mos. So this is stressing the action. Right? And baptisma, and say a washing, a purification active, which baptisma is the result. And so the action is by mos, and the result is by ma. All right, let me highlight and see what you're seeing. You're seeing there. So when you see this word baptisma, it's the action. When you see baptismos, you're talking about the result of it. And that'll fit all the passages in question. But the problem with this is our English kind of loses the difference because it translates both of them as baptism. Does that make sense? We don't get the thrust that's there in the Greek. This is what,
For you to give us an example sentence, maybe?
well, we just have to look at where the words are found. Why don't I'm sorry. I don't have any verses in mind right quick. Hold on a minute. I've got, I'll give you some verses. Okay. We'll take a quick look at one or two right quick, okay? All right. Matthew 3:7. The Pharisees and Sadducees came to his baptism, baptisma. And so they came to the result of the action. All right. The baptism that I am baptized with, Matthew 20:22, probably the baptism of suffering. All right. So that's the result. The result is stressing the result, and that would be suffering. Let's go to baptismos. Okay. Mark 7 and verse 4. The washing of cups and pots. It's only found about 4 times. And so that's the washing of pots and cups. Mark 7:8 also. The doctrine of baptisms. And that's probably like the washings of things. Okay? And that's in Hebrews 6:2 and Hebrews 9:10, meats and drinks and divers washings. Translated washings there. The most then is from the actual washing or the action itself. So that's the difference in those two. It's pretty clear. Baptisma would be your result, and that's what's found most of the time, more times than baptismos. Baptismos is found about 4 times, and it's translated washings all the times.
Interesting.
And so that's a distinction. And I've heard someone try to say, well, look, it's just a washing. I can wash myself by sprinkling or pouring. But they miss the whole point. While they are from the same root, the difference is they're not the same in meaning. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, interesting. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I liked your point on was it bapto on the dipping with the dye?
Yeah.
If you're gonna dye something, you don't just dye a corner of it. You dip the whole thing in.
Yep. I think we have. Yeah, there it is, bapto. And then say this is your basic root type word, and then bapt is dip. That's the word for dip. Buff. And so it becomes a pie instead of a fee because of the ta that's after it. The ta makes the fee. A fee and a t don't go together very well, so it becomes a pie. That's why it becomes pie. Okay? But hopefully that'll help a little bit because they can jump on this right here and use this word. Say, well, it's just a washing. You can wash by pouring over as well. But they've missed the point. It's from the word for dip. The basic root is to dip. Okay. And when you wash your pots and pans, you usually dip them. I know you'd spray them with water, or pour water over them, but I have no problem with pouring if you pour enough to cover them up. Okay. All right, that's a joke. It's a bad joke. Okay. Any questions? All right, I'm going to stop the recording.